October 6, 2013, Broncos Cowboys. This was one of the wildest shootouts in NFL history. Peyton Manning versus Tony Romo at Jerry World. And for a brief moment, it looked like Tony Romo was going to win this all-time duel. The Cowboys came out guns blazing. Romo was on fire, launching deep balls, manipulating coverages, and dicing up the Denver defense. Before the first quarter expired, the Broncos found themselves trailing 14-zip. Peyton Manning, at 37 years old, was getting dragged into a track meet in Dallas. But Peyton began to chip away, and soon chipping away turned into taking over, doing what only a select few quarterbacks in NFL history had the ability to do. He audibled into perfect plays, dissected blitzes before they happened, hitting Wes Welker, Julius Thomas, and Eric Decker all for scores. At one point, he even ran for a touchdown, his first rushing score in 5 years. That's how absurd this game was. And still, Dallas kept punching. Romo matched Manning blow for blow right up until the fourth quarter. With the game tied at 48, the Cowboys had a chance to win it, and that's officially when the script flipped. With 2 minutes left, Romo dropped back and threw a soul-crushing interception to Danny Trevathan. It was a dagger for the Dallas offense. Manning walked onto the field with death in his eyes and milked the clock with short passes and handoffs to set up the walk-off chip shot Matt Prater field goal. Final score 51-48. 12 touchdowns, over 1,000 total yards. Romo threw for 506 and 5 touchdowns. But the night belonged to Peyton. It was more of an otherworldly back and forth rather than a dramatic comeback. But it's the kind of performance that's absolutely will-breaking to be on the receiving end of. Because throwing for 500 yards and 5 scores and still losing to a 37-year-old Peyton Manning, that will crush anyone's hopes. September 5th, 2013, Broncos-Ravens. As if his amazing comeback season in 2012 wasn't enough, Peyton Manning made the greatest Week 1 statement of all time in 2013 during the season-opening Thursday Night Football game. His opponent was the Baltimore Ravens, who were the defending Super Bowl champions. Ray Lewis had just retired, but the aura of their defense was still intact. Joe Flacco had just signed a massive contract and was riding high on the elite QB debate. And the NFL, in all its dramatic wisdom, scheduled this as a banner-raising primetime season opener. But there was a problem for the Ravens. Despite being the reigning champs, the game wasn't in Baltimore. Due to a scheduling conflict with the Orioles, the Ravens had to open on the road and stand on the same field where they'd broken the Broncos' heart in the previous playoffs. Meanwhile, Peyton was looking for revenge. The Ravens actually held their own early. They led 17-14 early in the third quarter, but that wouldn't last much longer. He threw a 28-yard touchdown to Andre Caldwell, then 2 scores to Wes Welker, then another 2 to Demaryius Thomas, including a 78-yarder. A normal 17-14 game at halftime became 49-27 by the end. Peyton recorded 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and 462 yards. No one had thrown 7 touchdown passes in a game since Joe Kapp in 1969. Manning tied the NFL record in his first game of the season. There were no fourth quarter dramatics here. No clutch throws with the game on the line. This wasn't a comeback either. This was just a swift execution in the second half. And it was personal, because Manning never forgot what happened in that playoff loss 8 months earlier. And that night was the opening chapter of a record-breaking novel. That 7-touchdown opener set the tone for what became the single most productive season by a quarterback in NFL history. 55 touchdown passes, 5,477 passing yards, both NFL records that still stand. September 14th, 2008, Colts-Vikings. In quite the opposite fashion of the shootout with the Cowboys, for nearly 3 quarters, Peyton Manning was incompetent. In Week 2 of the 2008 season, the Colts offense was getting pushed around by a Vikings team that would ultimately go 10-6, but they grinded out games on the back of their defense and Adrian Peterson. Jared Allen was wreaking havoc, the run game was non-existent, and Manning couldn't even get the ball to midfield. It took almost 3 full quarters for Minnesota to go up 15-0 behind a bruising rushing attack and 5 field goals. A game where not a whole lot was going right for either team, but at least the Vikings were stacking points on the board. And it was fair to question whether Manning's knee, which had kept him out of the entire preseason, was more serious than was let on. But the third quarter was approaching its end, and Peyton was beginning to adjust. The first touchdown came in the third quarter. After a 58-yard bomb to Anthony Gonzalez came a Joseph Adai 1-yard score. Then, down 15-7 in the fourth, following a Vikings missed field goal, Manning led a 3-play, 61-yard drive that ended in another score, a perfect rope to Reggie Wayne, followed by a game-tying 2-point conversion. Just like that, it was 15-15, and Minnesota's defense had the 1,000-yard stare. The Vikings, once very much in control, had choked away a 2-possession lead. After a stop on the next drive, Manning got the ball back at midfield with just over a minute left, and with momentum on his side, there was little question as to how this game would end. He didn't need to do anything other than hit Reggie Wayne for a 20-yard gain. With 8 seconds left, Adam Vinatieri drilled the 47-yard winner. Colts 18, Vikings 15. A game that was a shutout for nearly 3 full quarters became another entry in Manning's long list of comebacks. This game's never going to be on a highlight reel, but for purists, it was a masterclass in just knowing how to win. Minnesota did everything they could for most of the game, but once Peyton found a single crack in the armor, he made sure to make Minnesota pay. September 17th, 2015, Broncos-Chiefs. It was early in the season, but the narrative was becoming strongly established. Peyton Manning was officially cooked. The Broncos were 1-0, but Manning was coming off a terrible month to end 2014 and a shaky Week 1. So the Week 2 matchup at Arrowhead was supposed to be the night his decline became official, and it certainly looked like that was the case halfway through the second quarter. Kansas City took a 14-0 lead thanks to a Jamal Charles score and a Marcus Peters pick 6. The Kansas City crowd was deafening and Manning looked washed up. It was a sad sight to see, but the game had passed Peyton by. But unbeknownst to the Kansas City crowd, Peyton still had a little gas left in the tank. Down 24-17 with just over 2 minutes left, Manning took the field at his own 20 one more time. But given the clock, running the ball was not an option. It was going to be all on what was left of Peyton's arm. And oh, would it deliver. The Chiefs' defense, so dominant all night, suddenly had no answer. With 40 seconds left, he delivered a strike to Emmanuel Sanders for the game-tying touchdown, 24-24. He rattled off an 80-yard, 10-play, 10-pass drive in just under 2 minutes. Peyton had done his job, but the Broncos weren't done. On the very first play from scrimmage after the kickoff, Jamal Charles fumbled, and Broncos DB Bradley Roby scooped it up and walked into the end zone. In 13 seconds, the Broncos went from trailing by 7 to leading by 7. Broncos 31, Chiefs 24. Manning finished with 256 yards and 3 touchdowns. Actually, the very last 3-touchdown game of his entire career. But the numbers didn't tell the story. The story was that in the final 2 minutes, after a game of struggle, he let everyone know that he was still the most dangerous man on the field one final time. November 15th, 1998. Colts-Jets. Every great hero has an origin story. For Peyton Manning, it was November 15th, 1998. In the middle of a rough rookie season, playing for a 1-8 Colts team against the surging 6-3 New York Jets, a team that had whooped his ass 44-6 just 8 weeks earlier. Nobody was scared of Peyton Manning yet. He was leading the league in interceptions. He looked like a wide-eyed kid with a big name, not a killer. The Jets were coached by Bill Parcells and had a brutal, disciplined defense that would pick the rookie apart. And after an interception of Peyton in the second quarter, up 13-10, things were going according to plan. Down 23-10 in the third quarter, the Colts looked like a team ready to go quietly into the night. They couldn't run the ball, and Manning had already taken a beating. But something caused the switch to flip, and the rookie began playing like the 5-time MVP we would soon come to know and love. With 6.5 minutes left in the third, Manning led a drive that ended with a strike to Marvin Harrison for a touchdown. Then, a stalemate for the next 18 minutes of game time. But what followed was the birth of a legend. Peyton completed to Marvin Harrison 4 separate times on his way down the field. Then, inside the red zone, he delivered a perfect off-platform pass to Marcus Pollard, and the Colts took the lead 24-23. It was more than a comeback. It was a personality reveal for Peyton Manning. He had arrived, not as a Hall of Famer or a league MVP just yet, but as a guy who could put an offense on his back when he needed to in order to win, against a playoff-bound team with that Colts roster. By no means did this win turn their season around. Indy still finished 3-13, but for everyone watching, this was the moment you realized Peyton Manning, despite all of the growing pains and mistakes he was going through, would deliver on his first overall pick status. He was going to be that guy. He didn't celebrate, he didn't flex, he just shook hands and walked off the field like he'd been there before. He hadn't, but he would be, again and again. September 21st, 2009, Colts-Dolphins. There's no reason the Colts should have won this game, not a single one. It was week 2 of the 2009 season, a Monday Night Football clash in Miami. The Dolphins weren't necessarily good, but they could hang. They had the Wildcat, a defense that could punch you in the mouth, and a game plan to just keep Peyton Manning off the field. Easier said than done. But as far as that goes, they executed better than anyone could have dreamed of. Miami held the ball for 45 minutes and 7 seconds. The Colts offense was on the field for fewer than 15 minutes, less than one quarter of actual football time. The Dolphins ran 88 plays, the Colts ran 37. Miami had 27 first downs, Indy had 14. It required one of the most efficient performances ever for Peyton to win the game. On the very first play of the game, he threw a touchdown, an 80-yard strike to Dallas Clark that made it look like it was going to be a long night for Miami. But after that, an airtight contest with both teams trading blows. Until the fourth quarter. Down 20-13 with 13 minutes left, Manning got the ball back. In 4 plays, they covered 79 yards. Donald Brown rushed in to tie the game at 20. Miami responded, of course, because they still owned the game script. A long drive led to a field goal. 23-20 Dolphins, under 4 minutes to go. But Manning needed less than 1 minute. He launched the Colts down the field, then dropped back and hit Pierre Garçon on a screen pass, and he did the rest, hauling it to the house for 48 yards. Colts 27, Dolphins 23. Manning had just pulled off one of the most efficient wins in NFL history. 14 completions for 303 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a win on just 15 minutes of possession. For him to have the ball only 1/4 of the game and still win was unfair. October 5th, 2008, Colts Texans. Most comebacks occur over the course of 2-3 quarters, but the true GOAT quarterbacks can pull one off in minutes. That's what happened on October 5th, 2008 in Houston. Until the 55th minute, the Texans were dominating. Rookie Steve Slayton was gashing the Colts defense on the ground. Sage Rosenfels, the backup quarterback playing for an injured Matt Schaub, was playing the best game of his life. And with just over 4 minutes to go, Houston led 27-10. It looked like Indy had no shot, but then Houston collapsed. The Colts scored a quick touchdown after they were given a short field, 27-17. Still a long shot. But then Rosenfels got too big for his britches. He rolled out, tried to go airborne over a defender, and got helicoptered, fumbling midair. Gary Brackett scooped it up and scored. Just like that, 27-24. On a hot sunny day in Houston with the roof open, the Texans were melting. But with the ball back and time winding down, Rosenfels had the chance to redeem himself and seal the best win of his career. But that chance wouldn't last long. On 3rd and 9, he was sacked, fumbling once again and giving Peyton the ball at Houston's 20, down just 3 points with all the momentum in the world. And you already knew how it was going to end. Just 2 plays and Indy was in the end zone again, after a short dart to Reggie Wayne, who snagged it with one hand on a fade. Colts 31, Texans 27. In the final minutes, the Colts scored 21 unanswered points. But I will admit, this was less of Peyton Manning winning the game and more of Sage Rosenfels choking the game away and handing it to him on a silver platter. Houston could have practically kneeled the ball out when it was 27-17 and won, but a couple fumbles and a short field was all Peyton Manning needed to go from 27-10 to 31-27 in a matter of minutes. November 15th, 2009, Colts Patriots. The Colts came into this Sunday night football matchup undefeated at 8-0. The Pats were 6-2 but completely outplaying Indy. Tom Brady was of course slicing up the Colts defense. Randy Moss and Wes Welker combined for 18 catches, 2 touchdowns, and nearly 300 yards. The Patriots led 24-7, then 31-14. But Manning never panicked. With just over 14 minutes to go and the Colts trailing by 17, he began his work, driving the field in 5 plays, capping it off with a 29-yard touchdown to Pierre Garçon, 31-21. The Colts defense, now feeding off the momentum, forced a rare stop, letting Peyton go right back to work. But almost immediately, he tossed an interception to Belichick's defense. Just like that, Brady had the ball again up 10, and got another field goal on the board to make it a 13-point deficit for Peyton. So with 4 minutes left, for any chance at a win, Manning was going to have to put together another touchdown drive and fast, which is exactly what he'd do. Thanks to a series of completions, a pass interference call, and a Joseph Adai touchdown, suddenly it was 34-28. With Peyton on fire, it set up Bill Belichick to make one of the most questionable calls of his career. The Pats had the ball back, but on the 4th and 2 from their own 28-yard line, where 99% of coaches would punt, Belichick made arguably the most infamous decision of his career. He went for it. He didn't trust his defense to stop Peyton Manning. That's what made this comeback special. Not just the score or the deficit that was overcome, but the mental submission it forced upon the greatest coach of all time. The conversion failed. Manning took over 28 yards from the end zone, and at that point, the ending was already written. He found Reggie Wayne on a slant near the goal line, putting the ball where only he could get it, and the Colts took the lead with 13 seconds left. Final score 35-34 Indy. It was a win via psychological warfare, where Peyton Manning broke Bill Belichick, made him second-guess his own genius. He made the league's most successful dynasty roll the dice on 4th and 2 at their own 28, because they'd rather take that gamble than give him the ball. October 15th, 2012, Broncos-Chargers. The Broncos were 2-3 going into this game, still figuring out what Peyton Manning meant in a Broncos uniform. After a decade plus in Indy, this was still unfamiliar terrain. New city, new team, new questions about whether his surgically repaired neck and rebuilt throwing motion could hold up. That night in San Diego, all those questions came screaming back. The Chargers opened the floodgates early. They were up 10-0 halfway through the first quarter, then 17-0, then 24-0. At halftime, the Broncos looked dead. Peyton had thrown a pick six, the offensive line was getting bullied, and San Diego was flexing on the sideline, and Peyton was looking cooked. But the second half opened with a sense of urgency for Denver. Manning led an 8-play, 85-yard touchdown drive to start the third, capped off by a 29-yard pass to Demaryius Thomas, 24-7. Then Denver's defense forced a fumble, scoop, and score to make it 24-14. Suddenly, the swagger was gone from San Diego's sideline. Another stop, and the ball was Peyton's once again. He'd end up hitting Eric Decker for a touchdown to make it 24-21. Add another stop by Denver's defense, then with 9 minutes to go, he delivered the go-ahead strike. A perfect 21-yard touchdown to Brandon Stokely that felt like a dagger. Then came the backbreaker for San Diego, a pick six the other way. Chris Harris Jr. took a Rivers pass 46 yards to the house. Now it was 35-24. Just like that, the Chargers had gone from full control to full collapse in 10 minutes. 35 unanswered points after halftime. Pure orchestrated dominance in the second half. Peyton Manning was officially back, and this helped launch a red-hot streak for Denver, who didn't lose a single game for the rest of the season. The 06-07 AFC Championship. Colts-Patriots. This was the monkey that Peyton Manning could not get off his back. Every great quarterback has that one rival who seems to always get the last laugh. And for Peyton, it was Tom Brady. They beat him 24-14 in 2003 and held him to just 3 points in the 04-05 playoffs. Belichick's defense had turned Peyton Manning's brilliance into dust time and time again. Brady was the golden boy, the winner. Peyton was the regular season stat guy who couldn't win the big one. On January 21st, 2007, in the AFC Championship, it looked like that story was going to be told one more time. The Colts fell behind 21-3 in the second quarter. Their defense couldn't get a stop. The Patriots were marching at will, and history was pressing down on Peyton's back. Another loss here would make him 0-3 in the playoffs against Brady, but Peyton wasn't going to let that happen. He went into the locker room at half down 21-6, but in the second half, Manning turned into something else entirely. First, a 76-yard drive ended by a QB sneak for a touchdown. Then another 76-yard drive with a touchdown pass to defensive tackle Dan Klecko and a 2-point conversion to make it 21-all. But Brady would fire back with an answer of his own, finding Jabbar Gaffney for a score, retaking the lead. But Peyton shook that punch right off, driving down the field once again for Dominic Rhodes to punch it in. Then, after trading punts and field goals back and forth, Manning found himself in the classic situation. Down 3 with just over 2 minutes left at his own 20. He led an 80-yard masterpiece, capped off by a Joseph Adai go-ahead touchdown with 1 minute left. When Brady's last drive concluded with an interception, the RCA Dome exploded. Colts 38, Patriots 34. Peyton Manning, after years of falling short chasing Brady, had finally conquered his biggest demon. October 6, 2003. Colts Buccaneers. This was a Monday Night Football miracle, and the most unbelievable comeback in regular season history. Peyton obviously had a knack for dunking on defending champs. Tampa Bay was the reigning Super Bowl champion with a historically great defense featuring 4 Hall of Famers in Derek Brooks, Warren Sapp, Rondé Barber, and John Lynch. And with as little as a couple minutes left, they had a 99.9% chance to win this game. The Colts trailed 21-0, then 28-7, then 35-14. With 5 minutes left after a Rondé Barber pick six, the game was over. Most Colts fans probably turned the TV off, went to bed, and missed what would have been the best comeback of their lives. John Gruden was feeling nicey on the sideline. Tony Dungy, meanwhile, the Bucs coach until 2001, was now the head coach of the Colts, watching his new team get dismantled on his birthday by the monster he helped build. But with 5 minutes, a seemingly impossible comeback began. Thanks to a 90-yard kickoff return, Indy only needed 3 plays for a rushing score to make it 35-21. But still down 14 with 3.5 minutes left, the Colts were going to need a lot of luck to go along with flawless execution. But they managed to recover the onside kick, leading to a 28-yard touchdown to Marvin Harrison that made it 35-28. But they weren't able to recover the second onside kick. So game over, right? Well, the Colts defense forced a quick 3-and-out, and Manning got the ball back with 1:41 left and 87 yards to go against one of the most talented defenses ever assembled. But thanks to a roughing the passer and a 52-yard completion to Marvin Harrison, it took just 5 more plays to tie the game at 35 and send it to overtime. But overtime was filled with just as much drama as the fourth quarter. The Bucs got the ball first, but stalled out and punted to Manning, who took over 6 minutes to drive them into field goal range, setting up a 40-yarder for Mike Vanderjagt, who missed the attempt wide right. But an insane penalty flag on Simeon Rice for leaping, which was technically classified as unsportsmanlike conduct, moved the Colts up 11 yards and gave them a second chance. But even the 29-yard attempt was not without drama, flanking off the upright and banking in. Finally, at 1 a.m., Indy had the incredible comeback win, 38-35. The greatest comeback in Monday Night Football history, the greatest comeback in regular season history. 3 touchdowns in 4 minutes, a road win against a historic defense, and the coldest execution of late-game brilliance the league had ever seen. This was the best comeback of Peyton Manning's entire career.